Okay, looks like we have the coordinates about dropping out. Perfect. Even avoided the red corsairs. Welcome everyone to a world known by two names. This lush, fertile world now has a population of around 10 million and is home to a legion formed from the tribes that roamed its grasslands. At the top of its most inaccessible peaks lies the legion's home, the fortress monastery established as the Primarch's home even before the coming of the Emperor. The Legion is renowned for high-speed hit-and-run attacks, and despite their seemingly barbaric nature, their brotherhood is one of the most refined in all the Legiones Astartes. Welcome to, by Imperial classification, Mundus Planus, better known to its inhabitants as Chogoris. It was, and still is, the home of the sons of the Primarch Jaghtai Khan, who was known as the Warhawk. They were the 5th Legion Astartes, the White Scars. Today, we catalogue what is known of the Khan and his legion, until the close of the Horus Heresy and their division into chapters. My name is Michael for Tactica Imperialis, and welcome to Legions, a 40k Stories mini-series. Records of the 5th Legion Astartes are woefully lacking in information before their reunion with the Primarch. Despite all my research, there are no records of any battles before the Legion arrived at Chogoris, almost no known individuals, not even records of how they came to be. All that we can say for sure is that they will have been formed during the Unification Wars from the seed of Jaghtai Khan after the Primarchs were scattered. Perhaps because of their legion number, it may have been rather early. Given their unique nature as a bike-mounted force in the 41st millennium, I would hope to see this trait develop during their time without the Khan, though it could have just as easily been adopted/adapted from the natives of Chogoris. The 5th were assumedly part of the 915th Expedition Fleet in the Great Crusade, as that was the force led by Jaghtai after his reunion with his sons, but I cannot say for sure as they may have been part of a larger fleet until the Primarch was discovered. As for the name White Scars, it was taken by the legionaries when Jaghtai was found, but was not in fact given by the Primarch as per the word bearers with Lorgar. The Khan had led the Talaskar tribe initially during his conquest of Chogoris, more on that soon, and the legionaries adopted their tribal markings before taking the name of White Scars. And that's it, in all honesty, at least as far as I could see. I'm hoping that more information will surface on the 5th Legion before their reunion with Jaghtai, but we do know more of the Primarch's tale. He was the 15th Primarch to be found, right between Lorgar and Conrad Kurz, who we've discussed before. When Jaghtai Khan landed on Mundus Planus, it was at a basic black powder level of technology. The ruler of the world was the Paletine, who led the civilized areas of Chogoris and whose army was undefeated in battle. Jaghtai, by contrast to many Primarchs who were taken in by their world's rulers, landed in the untamed plains known as the Empty Quarter, resourceless grasslands fought over by tribes who claimed the lands were their ancestral right. The Palatine never conquered these lands, as they were of little value to him, but would occasionally raid them for slaves or sport. The Warhawk was taken in by Ong Khan, the leader of the Talaskar tribe who saw the Primarch as a gift, and it proved to be so. Proving himself to be an incredible warrior, he conquered and united all of the tribes under his banner, always winning through force and martial skill as opposed to diplomacy. Very anti-Guilliman. His rule was strong, and he attempted to remove tribal differences, and operated a strict meritocracy where skill won out. He ruled for a decade or so, until he was the sole survivor of an avalanche that caught up him and some of his followers, before he was captured by the Palatine's son and his hunting party. He killed them all, sending the head of the noble back to the Palatine, along with a message telling the ruler to leave the plains people alone. The furious Palatine attempted to hunt the Khan and co down, but the mounted warriors of the Empty Quarter outranged and outmaneuvered his forces, and he was forced to flee with his bodyguards whilst his army was butchered, its first and last defeat. Jaghtai, now named Great Khan of Chogoris by the tribes, then conquered every city over the next decade or two via an ultimatum of surrender or destruction, always following through on his threat if the city did not stand down. When his army finally reached the Palatine's palace, his demand of the former ruler's head was swiftly met, but Jaghtai was no empire builder nor a ruler. The tribes of his grand army separated again, wishing for a return to their simple existences from before the coming of Jaghtai, and the Khan simply watched over them alongside his generals for around 6 months, at which time the Great Crusade arrived. Seeing the Emperor as a way to realise his vision of a united galaxy, Khan swore allegiance to the Imperium on the spot, and was reunited with his newly renamed sons. Rather like before they found Jaghtai Khan, the actions of the White Scars during the Great Crusade are poorly documented. It could be that this was deliberate, but some legions were simply warriors who would never be lauded heroes like Horus, and so their records were either poorly kept or never made at all. This time, however, there are at least a few records of the 5th Legion and the 915th Expedition Fleet. Under the Warhawk, the White Scars became a fearsome force, infamous for hit-and-run, high-speed assaults. It would seem they worked in tandem with the Lunar Wolves for a time before striking out alone, as they were present for the Ullanor Crusade in some military capacity, although it may just have been as reserves seen as Jaghtai and co. were not recorded as participating in the battle. Jaghtai, along with Guilliman and Manus, who we've discussed before, accepted the resultant ascension of Horus Lupercal to Warmaster, but it was more out of duty than love for his brother. He found more of a kindred warrior spirit in the Warmaster, bound by honour, but not wishing to rule. To be fair, Khan wasn't really close with any of the Primarchs, much preferring to keep to himself. His only friendships of any note were with Horus and the Thousand Sons Primarch Magnus the Red, assumedly due to their appreciation for Psykers in the latter case, but the exact reasons are not confirmed. In fact, Jaghtai was one of 3 Primarchs, along with Magnus and Sanguinius, to suggest the idea of a Legion Librarius in the first place, though it must be noted that the Librarius was in fact an experiment as opposed to a hard and fast rule. When the Council of Nicaea took place, it is not stated that Khan was present, though many present did have their identities concealed with the Emperor's consent, so he could well have been there, as Ahriman suspected more Primarchs were. However, one of his librarians, known as Storm Seers to the White Scars, was the voice for a conclave of librarians who spoke as part of the meeting, trying to strike a balance between the dissenters like Mortarion and the advocates like Magnus. They obviously lost the fight, and the Librarius was officially disbanded, but it is known that more than one legion did continue to use librarians in secret, so it is possible the Storm Seers still used their powers. In the run-up to the Horus Heresy, the White Scars were engaged against orcs in the Chondax system, whittling them down over several years. They had just started to mop up the remaining greenskins when news of the Warmasters Rebellion reached their ears. As the first phase of the Chondax campaign came to a close, the White Scars found themselves blockaded by the Alpha Legion, who were for some reason overtly hostile. This apparently wasn't Horus's plan, as the 20th was sent to recruit, not destroy the Scars, rather like the Night Lords to the Dark Angels or the Emperor's Children to the Iron Hands. Khan utilised an effective formation to break the blockade, having now heard conflicting reports from both sides. Rogel Dawn had called for all loyalists to head for Terra. Leman Russ had asked for an alliance after returning from Prospero, and Horus was painting the Wolf King as the traitor for what he had done to the Thousand Sons, even sending the Alpha Legion to attack the Wolves. Jaghtai never considered attacking the Space Wolves, and though he was reluctant to leave his outnumbered brother to fend for himself, Khan chose to leave Russ and follow Dawn's order, but made a detour to Prospero in order to ascertain the truth of everything that was going on. Maybe he didn't fully trust Russ's version of events, given his friendship with Magnus. There were no signs of the combatants, at least at first, but ghostly Thousand Sons that were immune to the Astartes weapons soon appeared. As his sons fell back, a projection of Magnus appeared before Jaghtai, imploring him to pick a side, but warning him that the Emperor was not to be trusted. It isn't stated that the Crimson King told Khan to choose chaos, but it is perhaps implied. After a long and interesting conversation, Khan destroyed the projection, but before leaving, the Warhawk and his guards were met by Mortarion of the Death Guard, whose reasons for being there are unknown. After attempting and failing to convert Jaghtai to Horus's side, mainly because Khan saw the Emperor as the lesser of two evils due to Horus's corruption by the Warp, Mortarion attacked the White Scars, but the two Primarchs and their guards were evenly matched. In space, meanwhile, the Scars were divided, as two of the Legion's commanders revealed themselves as Horus supporters and attempted to lead a coup. This was put down when Jaghtai returned to the fleet, as Mortarion chose to withdraw once the fleets began to clash. Initially, there had been no space combat between the White Scars and the Death Guard, but the arrival of shattered legionaries in captured ships changed that. It is possible that the coup could have succeeded if the Death Lord had continued the duel, but things were starting to go the Loyalist way anyway, so I doubt it. As both sides went their separate ways, the White Scars having been aided by Reviel Arvida, who became a guest of the Legion, Jaghtai used his sons in a very similar manner as during the Crusade, performing hit-and-run attacks on Horus's forces. This was successful at first, but as the traitors adapted to the 5th Legion strategies, the Scars found themselves more and more boxed in, unable to break for terror. They eventually found a lead for an elusive navigator who may have been able to help, but they found only his machine, Dark Glass, above a region known as the Catalyst Rift. The 5th were then attacked by combined forces of the Death Guard and Emperor's Children, led by Mortarion and Lord Commander Eidolon respectively, and Khan was preparing for a final reckoning with the Death Lord when he received word from his chief Storm Seer. This is why I believe the White Scar Librarius continued after Nicaea. The Librarian had managed to open a webway portal to Terra, as Dark Glass was seemingly a sister device to the Golden Throne, though it would cost him his life to do so, as an agent was able to destroy the machine. The Scars, guided by Arbiter, passed into the webway and arrived in time for the Battle of Terra, despite having to fend off the pursuing demons summoned by the Emperor's Children, led by the Keeper of Secrets, Manushya Rakshashi. During the Battle of Terra, the White Scars continued their hit-and-run strategies. They did not fight at the gates of the Imperial Palace, at least not to the same extent as the Blood Angels or Imperial Fists, instead harassing the traitor flanks. They then changed tack and launched a raid on the Lion's Gate spaceport, overrunning the traitors, slowing down their reinforcements, and forcing the Death Guard to be pulled away from the palace to deal with them. Assumedly, they rejoined the Blood Angels and Co. for the final stand, whilst the battle on the Vengeful Spirit took place, but that may not have been the case if it kept the Death Guard away from the Eternity Gate. In the aftermath, the White Scars played their part in the great scouring that drove the traitors into the Eye of Terror, but their actions are again poorly documented. The implication of this must be that they never clashed with the traitor Primarch at the very least, for such battles would surely have at least been a footnote in history. When the Codex Astartes was unveiled by Guilliman, Jaghtai accepted the book, and the White Scars were divided into at least 5 chapters: the Destroyers, the Marauders, the Rampagers, the Storm Lords, and the surviving White Scars chapter. It is possible that they were further divided, as 5 more chapters are known direct descendants of the Scars, including the Mantis warriors who joined Huron Blackheart during his secession, but it is unknown which founding or foundings they came from. With this done, the White Scars were tasked by Guilliman to reinforce and defend the Maelstrom from Chagoras, possibly making them the origins of the Maelstrom Warders that succeeded in the Badab War. However, Jaghtai Khan's story came to a close not long after this, as their return to Chagoras was not a happy one. The Dark Eldar had taken advantage of the Scars being away for so long, and had taken many captives, whom the Khar swore to save as part of a crusade against the Xenos, led by him and his First Brotherhood, the equivalent to a company in the White Scars terminology. He was never heard from again after he left. Some say he was simply lost in the warp, others that he is now within the webway or even in Comera itself, whilst one legend says he is trapped in the warp and condemned to fight for eternity. Given that he chased the Dark Eldar Lord straight into the webway, I would wager that he is now either in Comera or dead, and honestly, I do not know which is worse. Whatever the case, his sons have fought with honour and distinction for the last 10,000 years, taking part in many notable campaigns. Their current chapter master is Jubal Khan, known as the Great Khan within the chapter, who ascended to the role in around 943 M41, and now leads the White Scars on Armageddon. He shares his name with a Heresy-era commander who rose to prominence as the very first Master of the Hunt, the role now filled by Gorsaro Khan. But I would wager he's on his way home, as the Red Corsairs have laid siege to Chagoras itself. This psychic stealth tech is paying for itself, blimey. And so, now that we have documented all I could learn of the 5th Legion Astartes, we shall now explore a few noteworthy groups or individuals within the White Scars. The Kashuk were the elite of the White Scars Legion, composed of Terminator-armoured veterans who had in many cases been part of Jaghai's army on Chagoras. This wasn't First Company, it was just veterans. They also formed Jaghai's Honour Guard, which raises a very interesting debate. The White Scars of today are famed for bike combat, and their hit-and-run strategies were legendary in the Warhawk's time. But if he had a Terminator Honour Guard, then it implies that Jaghtai did not ride a bike or jet bike, at least not all/most of the time, since Terminators and bikes, well, they don't really mix. Their captain was Kinzar. Bear in mind I will probably butcher most of these pronunciations, you have been warned. Kin was a veteran of the wars on Chagoras, and had served in the Legion ever since Jaghtai rejoined it. He'd probably met the Khan personally around the time he became the Great Khan. It is not known whether he joined Jaghtai on Prospero or fought against the rebellion on the fleet, but I suspect he would have been planetside as he was not in command of handling the insurrection. He was next recorded as fighting against traitors on the planet of Peresima, though who said traitors were is undocumented. He would, unfortunately, not survive the heresy. During the hunt for the navigator that would lead them to Dark Glass, Jaghtai tasked Kinzar with leading a force to the Kalium Gate about 4 years after the Second Battle of Prospero, where they were ambushed by the Emperor's children under Eidolon. The Third Legion were in fact being fated, as the Kalium Gate, not Kalium, was never the objective for the Scars. The captain of the Kashuk entered the battle masquerading as his Primarch, but was eventually brought down by Eidolon. It seems that the Noise Marines of the Emperor's children were instrumental, as only the Storm Seers could stop their onslaught. He was rescued by Revularvida through psychic means, but died upon his battleship the Lance of Heaven, part of the largest class of ships in the galaxy, excluding Craftworlds and Space Hulks. When he learned of Kinzar's death, Jaghtai asked Jubal Khan to lead the Kashuk, but the captain declined and was instead named Master of the Hunt because of his seemingly high skill as a hunter. He was on one of said hunts when the heresy began. Namahi was instead named as Kinzar's successor, but what became of him is sadly a complete mystery. The other notable Kashuk was in fact one of the traitorous lot who tried to join Horus at Prospero. Gogal Khan was a Terran and a member of the Warrior Lodge, which may explain his choice to align with the Warmaster, but he was not the instigator of the rebellion. That quote-unquote honour goes to Hasik Noyan Khan, whose Kashuk guard was led by Gogal, and who was killed by Jaghtai in a rage when he rejoined the fleet. Like all of the rebels who survived and did not escape, it is known that traitor White Scars were present during the heresy, such as when Mesa Varen joined the Knights Errant. Gogal surrendered to the mercy of the Primarch, but his fate is unknown, as he was probably one of the Magyar Mazan. The Magyar Mazan were formed in the aftermath of the Second Battle of Prospero. When the various traitors surrendered on Jaghtai's return from his battle with Mortarion, they were all imprisoned by the Primarch, but were then given a level of redemption. They were organised into suicide squads, sent off to die raiding the traitors with no support at all. It is unknown exactly how many Magyar Mazan there were initially, since everyone save Hasik Noyan Khan was spared by Jaghtai, but by the time of the battle at the Catalyst Rift, only 132 were seemingly left. Those who answered Jaghtai's call for the Legion to reunite were placed under the command of the Terran Torgan Khan, the secondary conspirator of the rebellion and its highest-ranking remaining member. It may surprise you, but Hasik Noyan Khan was actually of Chagoris and one of the veterans from Jaghtai's conquest of the world, so it wasn't just the Terrans who turned traitor, for once. These Astartes were left aboard the Swordstorm, the flagship of Jaghtai Khan, when Mortarion and his Death Shroud bodyguard boarded it. The Death Guard were nearly caught out, as the Khan had long since left his vessel and had rigged it to detonate, and the Magyar Mazan were to sell their lives in order to delay the traitors and ensure Mortarion's demise. They ultimately failed, and Torgun was cut down by Mortarion not long before the Death Guard teleported away, but they came mighty close. The arguably more successful of the known Magyar Mazan was Hibu Khan, who was also a Terran and was the leader of a brotherhood, so presumably a captain. He, and assumedly any other Magyar Mazan that had survived alongside him, were part of the Battle of Dwell, which we discussed when we talked about the Iron Hands, and which nearly saw Horus himself killed by the aircraft of Shadrach Medusan. Hibu found himself against Horus Aximand of the Sons of Horus's Mornival, and whilst the traitor seemingly won the duel, he was severely wounded in the effort, and the White Scar was able to survive. His allies before Dwell were shattered legionaries aboard a captured Sons of Horus vessel led by Bion Henrikos of the Iron Hands, well, at least until the Iron Hands' death at the hands of Little Horus. What became of Hibu? We don't honestly know. He probably died at some point since he'd never be allowed back into the Legion. The Storm Seers are the librarians of the White Scars, and in the modern era it is they who will raise and elect all new recruits and leaders. Their origins come from the tribal leaders of Chagoris, who were probably not psychers all, but who were extremely respected nonetheless. The chief Storm Seer of the 5th Legion was Tagutai Yesuge, who was pretty much the second in the Legion behind Jaghtai after having fought with him since the early days on Chagoris. He was present at Nicaea and was the mouthpiece for the Librarian Conclave there, which is odd, given that he was stated to be a junior Marine, which classes with what we know of his position within the Legion. He then returned to Jaghtai and was thus absent from the Legion when the heresy broke out, and learned of it en route to the Chondak system via shattered legionaries aboard a captured Sons of Horus vessel. It was a salamander that told him, as far as I recall. He finally caught up with his Primarch on Prospero, and his small fleet would probably have been destroyed by the Death Guard's flagship, the Endurance, if the rebellion had taken much longer to be put down. He seemingly stayed with the Legion in their hunt for a path to terror from then on, and played a critical role in getting his brothers home again. Yasuge was forced into a drastic action after Vale, an infiltrator from the Navigator houses sent to deal with the Navigator the Scars were searching for, sabotaged Dark Glass and set it to be destroyed with vortex charges. The chief Storm Seer sat himself on the command throne, which, as we stated before, was perhaps a sister to the Golden Throne given that the Webway portal could seemingly see it, and ripped open that Webway portal. We all know it takes an incredible psyker to use these types of devices and do anything at all, so the fact that Yasuge pulled this off is very impressive. It's probably less difficult than the Golden Throne itself, given all the portals and stuff that's keeping under control, but still. He then sent a psychic message to 3 individuals to say goodbye: Jaghtai, Revul Arvida, and the Munitorum agent Ilya Ravalian, who had helped guide the Scars to Dark Glass in the first place thanks to her photographic memory and knowledge of the Navigator who had been working on it. The Scars escaped, and Yasuge died as Dark Glass was destroyed. Unfortunately, I don't actually know who became the Chief Stormseer after him, but I suspect they had a big legacy to live up to. As the White Scars are still poorly documented and no one else is given a full enough backstory, I thought I would take some time to explore a couple of miscellaneous members before we move on. Shiban Khan was a descendant of the Talskar tribe, the same one as Jaghtai had led, and rose to become a Khan, a captain. He was close with Torgun Khan during the Crusade, but when his brother attempted to turn traitor, not for chaos but purely because he believed it better for the Imperium, Shiban stood loyal, leading the defence. He was able to keep the rebels in check until Jaghtai returned, and over the next 4 years he was often found fighting the traitors, suffering many horrific injuries and receiving mechanical augmentations all over the place. His last known act was at the Catalyst Rift, when he fought the Prefector of the Paletine Blades, a unique duelist formation within the Emperor's Children, and Shiban was able to kill the Prefector, Ravash Kario, after the traitor was overcome by the demonic corruption that he had fought against throughout the heresy. Timur Ganturga was a captain who, like Jubal Khan, was not part of the Chondak's campaign, and he aided Iron Hands against the Sons of Horus on Nerix. Unfortunately, no idea what happened there either. This group of loyalists would then make their way to Imperium Secundus, and Galtunga would teach the Iron Hand Iron Cleave the ways of the Scars, which would probably be very useful for Shattered Legionaries given their nature. The last White Scar I wish to note was Altan Nohai, who was an apothecary of the Legion. He was then recruited into the Knights Errant, though by whom is unknown, for he is not stated as one of Garrow's missions, and became their primary medic, possibly their only medic, as no other apothecaries are known to have been recruited. He was part of the mission to the Vengeful Spirit on Molech, and would end up being killed during the infiltration/battle aboard the Warmasters flagship. So end the tales of the White Scars Legion. The Sons of Jaghtai Khan have less information available than others, and I'm hoping that more will arise in future to give more detail on their actions and individuals. Regardless, the 5th Legion have still proved themselves as a very skilled and honourable force, and in the absence of their Primarch, they have still gone on to perform many noteworthy deeds. Now, we must depart from Jaghtai and move on. Got those Red Corsairs to dodge as well. As our next Legion world is further to the east, I'm going to pop home for a bit and check in with the Tau, and whilst I'm there I'll have a discussion on the various alien auxiliaries that have sworn allegiance to the greater good. Actually, probably best I don't go home, just in case someone gets any funny ideas about chasing me or trying to come aboard. Then again, I'll have long left by the time. Never mind, I'll work something out. Regardless, the Tau auxiliaries are next. Thank you for watching this 6th part of Legions, our 40k Stories mini-series. My name is Michael for Tactica Imperialis, and I'll see you all again. Goodbye.